Okay, so our first guest speaker of the year is a young fellow that I met about 3 years ago. He impressed me so much with his business acumen, not only about lending and money and hedge funds and alternative methods to make money other than the stock market. I became not only an investor in his company, but I became a customer as well, which shows a lot. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Michael Weiss from Yield Street.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm just going to start by saying thank you to Ted. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. More importantly, like he said, he's become an investor and a customer in the business. I think that speaks to his support and to the way that he's believed in me and my partners and our company and our product that we've built. It's also a bit of a humbling experience, to say the least. The last time I was here was probably in one of these rooms in the summer class doing business law and ethics. So it's nice to be back. I'll give you a little bit of an outline of some of the ideas and thoughts that I thought about could be interesting to talk about today, and I'll let you guys tell me if there's anything else that interests you that you want me to cover. And I want it to be interactive, so feel free to raise your hand or interrupt at any time and ask any questions along the way. I'll start by telling you a little bit about my story. Then we'll talk about how do you guys define what an entrepreneur is and why does it interest you. Talk a little bit about introspection, so along the lines of Tiffany, getting to know yourself and understanding what your strengths and weaknesses are and how to decide if you want to be an entrepreneur and where you could be and how to be successful. What does it mean, or what does it take to build a successful business? What's the good, the bad, and the ugly about being an entrepreneur, some of the things people don't tell you. A couple of personal rules and lessons that I've learned along the way. And I think that's kind of my idea of what we could talk about today. Anything in particular that you guys want me to cover that I didn't? Okay. So before we start, who likes football? Anybody? Really? No way? Alright, let's show you something cool anyway. It's not out yet. You're one of the first to see it. Maybe not.
Steve, maybe you could help them. I think we need to have Chrome up there. I'm not sure what the browser is, but they got a lot of fun.
They got it. It's Internet Explorer. Not sure what that is anymore. So for those of you that don't know, Ray Lewis is one of the most well-known football players in the NFL. I think he was in the game for 17 years. I met Ray September, I think it was, October, by accident with 4 or 5 people. He took a liking to Yield Street. He started investing in it. Next thing I knew, 9 days later, he shot a commercial, didn't charge a penny because he believes in the dream and wants to be a part of the success. So take a look at this. It's kind of cool, and then we'll get into it.
Ray Lewis, Super Bowl MVP, started here. For 17 years, Ray worked hard, planned right, and played smart, yielding one of the best careers in NFL history.
Everything I do is a long-term plan. My work in the NFL, my 17 years in the game.
Today, Ray's next move is making a difference in the communities, focusing on his family while securing their future.
Yield Street was founded so people like you can invest in asset-based loans that you may otherwise never have access to. Yield Street empowers you
to make informed investment decisions. Post-NFL career, I'm just like everyone else. I'm focused on my career, focused on being a father, and I'm focused on my financial stability. All of the things that are important in life.
What's your next move? Getting started on Yield Street is easy. Pick an investment and build a portfolio.
You can invest in the ride-sharing market.
You can invest in assets secured by real estate.
With Yield Street, you can invest as low as $5,000. What's your next move?
Yield Street. Invest better, smarter, together. Visit yieldstreet.com today and get started.
So we'll tell you more about Yield Street as we get along. I thought that was a cool video. So my story is it's kind of interesting, I guess. I grew up not too far away. I grew up in Long Island in the Five Towns. My parents were both children of Holocaust survivors. My father was as much of an entrepreneur as you could get. He was a businessman through the ups and downs. He always looked at, he was in the diamond industry, always tried to figure out where there was a mismatch in the market and how he could accomplish building a successful business by meeting those needs, similar to what most entrepreneurs identify. He ultimately built a business that was both US and abroad. Similar to what Ted said, there's Uberization going on in every business. It happened in that business as well, and you have to continue to learn to adapt. I grew up in a nice home, good family, good community. My parents were amazing people. We had what we needed, but I think that I got that burn and that desire and that hustle from watching my father, from watching him go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, coming home at 8 o'clock at night. That was something that I think was ingrained in me from the start. My first business was probably in like 6th grade. I had a next door neighbor who was a little younger than me, so the bus came to pick him up later. So I'd run around the corner, pick up bagels, get the breakfast special for $1.99, sell it for $4.50, and get on the younger kid's bus. It worked for about 2 years until my parents realized that I never made it to the first class. Second business I got suspended for. It's a little more exciting. When I was in 8th grade, the principal came into school and said, we're getting new lockers. So we had these old school lockers that they didn't even open, you can imagine. And they were getting these nice floor-to-ceiling lockers. And they were charging, I don't remember what it was, like $150 a locker. But they had this deal that if you had younger brothers in the school, then you can keep the lockers throughout the family. But I was the only boy in my family in school, so I felt like I was getting ripped off. And there was a number of guys who felt the same way. And obviously you don't want to be the guy without the locker when everyone else has a locker. So I came up with an idea where I was going to buy 3 or 4 of these lockers and then get the locker dividers and sublet the space to all the guys who didn't have younger siblings. It went so well that we ended up buying like 6 of them until I got suspended because the school couldn't sell any lockers because nobody needed the whole locker, they just wanted a portion of the locker. So I guess there's always some innate business sense that I had. My first real job was a summer job. I was working for a guy named Harvey Heino on, I think it was Q and Nostrand, just around here. He was in the real estate sales business. He had a Coldwell Banker franchise. He came from nothing. He built up a tremendous operation, and he gave me a shot. And he said I could come work there. I worked there. My whole quote brilliant idea was I was going to make PowerPoints, and that's how I was going to present the homes. And nobody was doing it then. It turned out people really liked it, and before I even got my license, I was able to close some deals, which was exciting. Next summer, I run back and I say, "Hey, Harvey, can I have a job?" He says, "No, you can't work it." So I was pretty surprised because I thought I did okay for my age at the time. And last summer, he said, "No, I think that you have the ability to do something bigger and better. I'm going to make some introductions for you." That landed me my next job, which was working for a large real estate finance brokerage firm, actually based in Brooklyn at the time on M & Coney. And it was the mortgage brokerage business. I spent the first 6 months probably making 100 phone calls a day. I didn't make $1 for the first 6 months. And I was there every day at 7:30 and I drove in. I wanted to go to school, but I also wanted to work. So I ended up going to school at Touro College because they had a night program from 6 to 10. So I can get to the office at 7 and leave at 5:45, grab a quick bite, and be in class by 6, finish at 10 or 10:30. Went back to the office, did a half hour, 45 minutes of work because it was right there, and then went home. after that, I got an opportunity in 2009, really right at the end of 2008. I had finally started to do well in business, and all of a sudden the banks started falling by the wayside. There was nothing you could do. You could work as hard as you want, and if the banks were out, they were out. So the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and Ted knows the story, is I had a business model which was you always want to go for that big deal. The problem was if the big deal fails, you didn't make any money. So you got to go for a bifurcated plan, which is focus on the bread and butter, on the smaller deals that you can keep closing and earn a little bit of money, and always have a couple of the bigger deals in the back end. If they work, it's great, you get a big check. If they don't, then at least you still have your bread and butter coming in. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. So at the time, I had a very large deal. It was a $150 million deal across 13 properties across the state of Tennessee. It was my first time in Tennessee. Somebody actually innocently asked me when they saw my yarmulke, I thought you had horns, which I thought was pretty funny. But 5 days from closing, after 6 months and probably $250,000 or more in due diligence fees paid by the borrower, UBS sends an email that says, not sure how to tell you this, but real estate lending is shut down indefinitely. It's shortly after Lehman crashed, and the market is just going totally bananas. And that was it. There was nothing to talk about. The deal was over. 6-figure commission out the door. Nothing happens. I got an opportunity to work at a hedge fund. One of the founders of the fund saw me within that day or two at a charity event, and we started talking, and he said, why don't you come in to my office next week? I come to the office. He says, I focus on something called asset-based lending, which means I make loans where other banks don't. We have $1.5 billion under management. You could have a job here. You could either be getting coffee or you could be running a book of business, whatever you make of it, but I'll give you a shot. And that was it. And I started out doing literally grunt work. And over the following 4 years there, I really built up myself, and I worked hard, and I leaned on the people there with expertise to teach me some of the things that were in that business. And I ultimately built the largest corporate litigation book in the United States. At the last NBA lockout, I had the largest book of loans to all the NBA players who needed financing during the time. And shortly thereafter, in 2013, I left. I started my own fund called Soli Capital with 2 partners. And a year ago, we started Yield Street. And the premise behind Yield Street is to create an investment platform where investors can identify opportunities that they typically can't get unless they're in a hedge fund. And they're what's called asset-based loans, which means that they have real collateral to back them up. That even if the economy isn't doing so well, we expect these investments to do well because there's collateral and there's something to hold on to. That the performance of these types of deals are not correlated to the markets, and they earn anywhere from 8 to 20%, and they earn anywhere from 8 to 20%, and they're usually less than 36 months in duration. The problem in the industry and the impetus for building the business was twofold. On the investor side, and Ted will tell you, you're always looking for different types of deals, but unless you're writing a really big check, you're not getting into hedge funds. People don't like to put them in a black hole and not know which deals they get into. And the hedge funds on the other side aren't going to spend time with investors who want to put $5,000, $50,000, $100,000 into a deal because they only have a certain amount of time in the day, and they're going to focus on the big money, the institutions, the ultra high net worth people. So you have tons of people like yourselves in a few years from now who are business owners, who are successful employees somewhere or entrepreneurs. You're making money, you want to invest it elsewhere, and you have very limited options. The stock market's incredibly volatile. Unless you're a professional investor today, it's very hard to make money in the stock market. The bond market is shot. Savings accounts do nothing for you. So where do you invest money? You end up maybe doing a deal with a friend who tells you, hey, I have this great deal, but you never really get the opportunity to invest with other asset managers who are the best in their business. There are businesses here that have been around for 10, 15 years that offer investors the opportunity to be a part of that. And we'll talk more about what it takes to build a great business in a minute. But I guess just you guys could by show of hands or just jump out there, how do you define what an entrepreneur is? What does an entrepreneur mean to you?
Starting a business with big risk.
Okay. Anybody else? It's like on the verge, just say.
I don't know, it means a lot of things.
Okay. What is it?
What's said in the video? innovation or something, or you gotta plug black hole or the holes in the system, and then you differentiate yourself by covering those holes.
Okay. Why is entrepreneurship interesting to you? You're all in this course, it's about entrepreneurship. But what's exciting about it?
Not being a follower, leading the pack and pushing the envelope.
You can do that in a company, like you can get a group and have an innovative project to work on.
Having your say be the final say.
Okay.
It's kind of exciting knowing that you've got to get up, in a sense, every morning and push that through. You know, you're the one keeping yourself on your toes. You're the one at your own back.
Okay.
It's kind of like if it falls through, a lot of the times it's on you. That's what I find kind of exciting to be an entrepreneur.
Okay. There's a sense of responsibility that you have to be keenly aware of that as well, and accountability.
I think the mere fact that you'll be able to accomplish goals that you set out for yourself rather than working for somebody else.
Okay, that's one I definitely want to talk about. Anybody else? Okay. Does anybody here know what they want to do? Like over the next 5 years, have a good sense of what it is that you're going to do?
I would like to write music for artists, singers, rappers, and just music, writing music.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
How does it do it?
I mean, I presented it, but
Okay.
turning that into a diversified investment portfolio and
Okay.
retiring around 40.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. One interesting thing I think is interesting to say, and Ray is actually the one who always preaches it. In whatever community you grow up in, whether it's poor, wealthy, certain types of religion, New York, out of town, it doesn't make a difference. People often, and Tiffany mentioned it in an interesting way, you find yourself racing down the street and you're not sure why, right? People often basically kind of cave to what's around them and to the society around them. And they forget to appreciate that the successful entrepreneur is really always about believing in yourself and thinking outside the box and doing something a little bit different than everyone else did it. You don't have to follow the rules every time. Study it, understand it thoroughly. You could break the rules if it makes sense. You can always get out of whatever your situation is. You don't have to cave into it. I think that every one of us who have been successful have done that in one way or another. For some people it could be more difficult than for others, but ultimately you've seen successful people come from all walks of life, from every type of demographic. And I think always being keenly aware of your surroundings and making sure that you're not necessarily conforming in a negative way is something that's very important as an individual, but especially as a budding entrepreneur. So let's talk about this. I think that in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to spend a lot of time in introspection. You have to know who you are. You have to look into yourself. You have to understand what makes you tick, what do you like, what are you good at, what are you not good at. We're not good at everything. So are you an introvert, are you an extrovert? Are you good at customer interfacing businesses? Do you want to be in sales? Are you a qualitative thinker or are you more analytical? And I think that the way I do it, and I try to do it at least once a year, consciously and subconsciously, I do it all the time, is walk around with a notebook or with your iPhone for a few weeks. And during the day, think about what are the things that got you going that day? What are the things that annoyed you that day? Some people are great with minutia and little operating issues. Some people are terrible. I am terrible at it. I can't stand little minutia, but my partner is amazing. That's something we'll talk about after, finding the yin and the yang between what you're doing and making sure that your business has the balance and that you can do all that. You need to figure out, like I said, what it is that what are the characteristics within yourself that will help you be successful? You might have this great idea and it might be excellent. For example, your idea with the shredders, it could be great, but if you don't figure out how to properly scale that, how to stop taking all the phone calls, how to deal with customer issues, with shipping issues, if it doesn't get there on time, if that's something you're great at, then it's amazing. You can probably scale that and do great. If it's something you're not good at, then when that pressure comes and the customer is calling you about the $1 million machine that you sold him, and he's got piles of shredded material that he needs to get done, and you're sweating and stressing because you already spent half of your commission, that's not a business that's going to grow. So understanding that at the outset and really figuring out what it is that you're good at, what it is that you enjoy and that you're passionate at, that is that is the first step to figuring out what business you should go in and if you're going to be successful in that business, in my opinion. At the same time, while we're talking about an individual, I think that people have to really dedicate time sometimes when we're young. And I'm definitely not that much older than you. We forget and we run 1,000 miles an hour, and Ted's often the voice behind me who tells me to slow down. You need to enjoy life. You need to find outlets for yourself. You need to figure out what kind of hobbies you could do. For some people, it's running, it's exercising. For others, it's smoking a cigar. For others, it's going out, skydiving. Whatever your thing is, figure it out and spend time doing it. And another thing I could tell you that I've experienced personally is charity. Figure out how to give back, but don't just do it haphazardly. Find something that you're passionate about, that you want to support, that you think you can make a difference of, whether it's time, money, or however it is that you could help out. But big misconception. People think that, oh, we're being so generous, we're doing charity. Do it for long enough and you'll find that it gives you back a lot more than you give them. It helps round out your character, it keeps you grounded, it makes you a better business person, it makes you a better person in general. But I think that while you're on that note, that's something that you always want to focus on. Once you figure that out, then know what's out there. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. There's a lot of pitfalls in it. And everything that your business idea could be great, and everything you don't expect to go wrong is most probably going to go wrong. So figure out if that's the right move for you. Working for somebody else is not the end of the world. It depends what's important to you in life. For some people, they want everything in life. They want private jets, they want this, they want that. They have to go out on their own and figure out how to do it. For other people, they want to come home at 5:30, they want a nice family life, they don't want any stress, they want to pay their bills, they want to retire at 45. You can go be a teacher, you can make great money, you can do a lot of jobs, you can be an accountant, you can be a lawyer, you can work in corporate America. There's great benefits to doing that, but it's not for everyone. So once you spend time figuring out who you are as a person, what your strengths and weaknesses are, then I think you'll have a better sense and take into consideration what the other options are. You may have great talents, you might be a great project manager, you might think that because you have excellent ideas that you should start your own business, you might not be the greatest executioner. So if you can be in a role within a company, whether it's an innovative company like Google or a Yield Street who's trying to do cutting edge things, and you could be a project manager and have support from a team that's going to help you execute, that could be a much more rewarding career for you than going out and doing it on your own. And that's not to discourage anyone, but it's the truth. What does it take to build a successful business? What is a successful business? You say you want to retire at 40, how are you going to do that? What's the good, the bad, and the ugly of being an entrepreneur, right? So the first thing I'll tell you is, and not to sound too cliche, but do what you love. Don't do it for the money, right? We're all in business for the money. We all want to make money, so I don't mean it in that way. But if the business is good and the product is right, the money will come. It will sell. But if your passion's not there, you're not going to go the extra mile and you're not going to build a successful business. You might make a couple bucks here and there, but it's not going to be an ultimately successful business. So whatever you're doing, just make sure that it's something that you're excited to talk about, that you eat, dream, sleep it. Because I know that I wake up in the middle of the night with an idea. When I'm in the shower, I come up with my ideas. Why? I don't know, but it's ingrained in me. So if you're doing something that you love, you're going to feel the same way about it. It's just, and if you don't, then come up with the next idea or wait for it to come. Warren Buffett actually said, if you guys ever have time, I strongly recommend reading his annual reports. They're amazing. But he had 29 quotes, like his greatest 29 quotes that they pulled out. And one of them is, if you don't have a good opportunity, just do nothing. You guys are in school, you don't have to rush to the idea. The idea isn't yelling at you, it's not screaming, and you don't love it, every part of it. Just wait, something else will come. You're in a point where you're in an innovative point of your life, you get to think, you have downtime, things like that. Wait till you find the right moment if you're set on being that entrepreneur. And my personal advice is, I would say, your first thing is not to be an entrepreneur. Start from the bottom, learn a business, understand how the operations work, how the sales work, how customer interface works, how the books work. How do you interact with lawyers, with accountants? Like, these are a lot of things that you have to know, and you don't want to get hit with it when you start your business and have a bunch of issues. You want to really learn it as much as you can from the ground up. There's a huge misconception in entrepreneurship. Everyone likes to say, I want to be my own boss. Do you really think you're your own boss?
No, not initially, not right off the bat. Not initially, not right off the bat.
You're never your own boss, ever. No. You have customers you sell to. You have to answer to them. You have investors that support you. You have to answer to them. You have vendors and partners that you have to work with and for. You want to write music. You can't just shove your music down someone's throat. If he doesn't like it, he's not going to take it.
But that's more so like a partnership. That's not really, you're ahead of me, like we're on this level playing
This is
field.
not an ego game. It's not a, you're ahead of me or I'm ahead of you. You're accountable. You have a product. You're building a product so that you could sell it. You're selling music. You're selling shredders. You want to sell services on a luxury retreat, which, by the way, is a huge business and a budding business these days. And I think you should go for it. But you need to cater to all the people that are going to come. You have to answer to all the investors that are going to support you to build that multi-million-dollar retreat. You have to figure out how to answer to everybody's dietary needs who are going to come. You have to figure out how you're going to sell your $1 million machines and how you're going to deal with shipment issues. And I have to figure out how I'm going to deal with the originators who are giving me the deals, the investors who are coming into the deals. I have to answer to my employees, right? I got to pay the bill no matter what. The business could be great one week and it could be terrible. You still have to pay your employees. You're not your own boss. You're making decisions, you're calling the shots, but you're accountable the entire way. Yeah.
What percentage of the deals fall through on Yield Street?
None. Because we're very careful at this time that I only put deals up that I know that the investor base likes. I study them hard. There aren't that many deals up at any given time because I want to know that whatever we're going to do, we're going to close. That's not true. One deal actually fell through. One deal
What
fell
happens
through.
in the event that a deal falls through?
In that particular deal, we raised the capital to close the deal, but last second there was an issue with the deal. We ultimately didn't do it. Investors got all their money back, and that was the end of the story. Which that'll bring me to another point. We could jump in it now. It sounds so obvious, but always be honest. No matter what. Good news, bad news, it doesn't make a difference. Just say it. People will respect you for it either way. The last fund that I was at, right before I came there, they were the victim of a huge Ponzi scheme. And I've seen people try to sell us frauds all the time. When you're in this type of business and you have a reputation for financing things that typical banks don't, everybody comes out of the woodwork. All have the best idea. Every single one of them has gotten caught. When you're dealing on the other side with an enterprise that has no budget, no time horizon, and their only job is to find people, they will. So, as cliche as it sounds, live by it every day. How many of you know a self-made man? How many of you know?
A few.
Okay. How many of you know?
In what way do you mean self-made though? Like
You tell me.
mentally or just doing your
Financially,
business?
successful business.
Oh, okay, financially. I know a few.
Okay, anybody else?
No,
No, right?
No.
Why not?
because everybody is made by everybody who surrounds them.
Right. There's a quote that I always love. It's written by or said by George Burton Adams. He was in the 1850s to early 1900s. He was a big historian. He was also a professor at Yale. There is no such thing as a self-made man. We are made up of thousands of others. Everyone who has ever done a kind deed for us or spoken one word of encouragement to us has entered into the makeup of our character and our thoughts, as well as our successes. What that means is that every single person that you connect with, every time that someone refers you another account, every time that someone refers you to another investor, to another customer, to another vendor, that person is part of your success. When you start thinking you did it yourself, you're already going downhill. Cherish the relationships, build the relationships, find mentors, find people that can give you the advice that you need, can help you in the areas that you're weak. That's an important thing that I think I've learned and that you can never waver from. Every day I speak to who knows how many people on a weekly basis. There are people that I connect with that totally add tremendous value to the way you think of things, their perspective, etc. Compliance, for those of you that are going to go into businesses where there's regulatory issues and whatnot, never ever think that compliance is light or we'll get there when we have to. You always have to build your business from the beginning and suit it up right. The last thing that I'll talk about, just to give you a little bit of a good sense, is what does it take to build a successful business, right? So find products that people really need, solve a market issue, but nobody wants to work forever. So how do you build a business that is real enterprise value? How do you build a business that you're going to be able to have an exit from, that you can sell, that you can retire? You have to study the market that your industry that you're in, understand what are the drivers of value, why would a private equity company buy you out, why would you be able to go IPO, how can you leave this business on for generations, how do you grow it, how do you have scalability in it, right? So in my business, it's all about user growth, it's all about virality, it's all about creating intellectual property, it's all about solving the issue that 14 million accredited investors in America have, which is they don't know how to invest. Figure out where you want to be at the end of the road. You want to retire when you're 40? How are you going to do it? Work backwards. Understand what it takes to build those value drivers and start building them one by one. Nobody can do everything. Where you're weak, hire strong. Hire people that are smarter than you, hire people that are as passionate. Don't ever hire someone who just wants a job. Make sure they believe in your vision and your dream, and they're going to be able to build this with you. That is and one thing I always like to say is everyone has this quote, "Nice guys finish last." What does that mean to you? You believe in it? So they do. But it's the right thing. The guys who you see coming up in the business doing things that are unethical, fast-moving guys, whatnot, they'll probably make a lot more money than you in a shorter period of time. But they'll be out of the game way before. Always do the right thing, even if sometimes it means that you have to take a little bit of a hit for it. Stand your ground. Don't let people walk over you. Be a person of principle, but still be the nice guy. You'll end up being in the race a lot longer. And the last thing I'll tell you is that recognize the opportunity you have here. Ted is standing in front of your room here once a week. He's a successful businessman. He's an investor. He's always looking for a new idea. If I were you, I would do nothing the entire semester but figure out how I'm going to convince Ted to invest in the business that you have. Because if you leave this class and you don't, if I had Ted as a professor, like I would be holding this guy's leg the entire class. I'd like sign up for it. Like if it was given him 4 days a week, I would be like there 4 days a week. Those are the types of relationships and opportunities that you have to always recognize that are in front of you and not miss out on them. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, so let's see what